For the people that don't ignore red flags, Mantra DAO and the Ohm token crash changed everything. The token went down by 90%. It went from 5 billion of market cap to just 500 million. 4.5 billion just evaporated in thin air. The question is, can this happen to other major cryptocurrencies? Mantra DAO wasn't very small. It was a major top 100 cryptocurrency. Now it's not anymore. The question is this potentially an issue for the overall space? Now, Mantra DAO is now at 51 cents. It crashed massively, and even after that crash, it continues to go down. And Ohm was one of those tokens that had very little liquidity and also very little attention. So I've published various videos on Mantra DAO before. So the average video is here in gray, and that was the last Mantra DAO video before the crash. The crash then created a bit additional viewership. But yeah, it's always the critical videos. It's always the videos that don't pump up the token that tend to underperform in YouTube. That's a problem, right? There is confirmation bias. If you tell people this thing is going up, you get a lot of thumbs up, and that of course helps the algorithm. Thus, that's probably why you mainly see those shillers on YouTube. That's why everybody that you see in the crypto space always says this is going up, that's going up, simply because it brings more views. The subsequent videos after the crash, of course, performed very well. And up to this day, those videos still get views. And I want to focus this video on what's going to happen next and what's currently driving the price action. Because this month, Mantra DAO was one of the worst performers. But can this happen for any of those other tokens as well? CoffeeZilla made an interview with the Mantra DAO CEO. And apparently he had no idea what was going on. Just some random cascade of liquidations, people taking on too much leverage. But if we believe all of that, then the same thing could happen otherwise. Now, in this interview, we learn interesting things. We learn how people manipulate crypto prices by doing over-the-counter deals. So there are the official unlocks of a token. Insiders and the team have vesting schedules, and they might have to wait 1 or 2 years until they get access to their tokens. But sometimes those insiders do over-the-counter deals, giving some discount to people that are not officially listed, and those people then might sell. This seems to have happened with Mantra DAO. The big question mark then revolves around the vesting schedule of those over-the-counter deals that are not official. Here is the official supply of Mantra DAO over time. So we started out with 932 million, and yes, this has grown slightly over the last months, but nowhere near to justify a 90% price collapse. Since that crash, Mantra DAO continues to go down. And I believe what's currently driving the price action is mainly perpetual futures. It's bets on the price, because when the price is crashing, that generates a lot of attention, and that then also creates a lot of bets on the derivatives. Have a look at this. This is the open interest weighted funding rate for Mantra DAO. We first had the price crash. What then subsequently followed is a lot of negative open interest. So this is bets on further falling Mantra DAO prices. The short investors, so the people that bet on falling prices, they were willing to pay 0.44% every 8 hours to the people that bet on rising prices. But have a look at this. When short interest was the highest, at 62 cents per Ohm token, the price also tended to be at its low point. Subsequently, we saw purchases. The price recovered. So we went back to 80 cents. So there are people that get incentivized by those huge financing costs to buy up Mantra DAO. Because at the same time, of course, shorts get liquidated when the price rises at the same time. Now, besides the perpetual futures market, we've also got the spot market. And there are 3 blockchains where Mantra DAO is traded. And we can have a look at the number of retail investors and whale investors. And we can see what is the smart money, what are the heavyweights actually doing. So there's a version on Ethereum, there's another one on the Binance Smart Chain, and there's a third version on the Base chain. Now on Base, we've got 66,000 holders. On the Binance Smart Chain, we've got 12,000 holders. And on Ethereum, we've got 42,000 holders. Now, when we look at the different chains, we see that pretty much all of the heavy liquidity is on Ethereum. So this here on the right is the number of wallets that have at least $100,000 worth of mantra. So on Ethereum, there are more than 150 such wallets. On the Binance Smart Chain, there are only 7 such wallets. And on Base, there's only a single such wallet. So all of the price discovery on chain, at least, happens on Ethereum. And so it seems like prior to the crash, a lot of whales already sold off. After the crash, they start buying back in again. The number of whale investors is now close to an all-time high. So just to summarize this again, in case you're not familiar with the setup, on the left side we've got the number of retail investors, on the right side the number of whales. And the way we make this distinction is by looking at the minimum number of tokens that are held in a particular wallet. So on the left side that's 2,000 tokens, in the middle it's 20,000, on the right it's 200,000. Since Ohm is now roughly half a dollar, that's $1,000, $10,000, $100,000. That's how this distinction is made. And again, the crash caused some buying interest, but the whales seem to have bought the most. Now the protocol itself is pretty much useless, right? There's very little total value locked on MantraDAO. Even at a market cap of 500 million, if the protocol itself only holds 2 million worth of value, it's not really worth talking about any fundamentals. In the end, this is another game of musical chairs, and Ohm relative to Bitcoin tended to underperform most of the time, up until the beginning of 2014. Then we saw the big leveraging event, probably also purchases through the over-the-counter deals as described in the CoffeeZilla interview, and then recently our crash. Over the long term, I believe that MantraDAO or the Ohm token will continue to underperform Bitcoin, because all of the investors that got into this token just for the real world asset narrative, they are now out. MantraDAO is now much more risky. MantraDAO is now the speculative ball of people that bet on perpetual futures. At the same time, the supply will go up, and once trading volume has normalized again, we are probably going into perpetual bleed mode again. But I'm currently not betting on either direction, simply because the market makers now have full hold of the token. If most people bet on falling prices, the price will pump. But once the bets on the perpetual futures market come down in volume, then the long term will take over again. I do not think that there will be more OTC deals where the price will get inflated artificially. Now, for the average Joe, for the regular investor that just buys and holds altcoins, times like this are very tough. But if you get a bit deeper into the data, and if you're agnostic to the direction, if you also bet on falling prices, we can make money during times like this. Here are some posts by our community. So it's still possible to profit from those pump and dumps. It's hard to anticipate what token will pump, but it's relatively straightforward to anticipate at what point a token will continue to dump. And again, if we bet on falling prices during those dumps, we can make money relatively consistently. I'm of course also sharing my own trades. So I've recently opened a short on the Trump token. There was this huge pump because many people bet on falling prices of Trump because of the tokenomics, but then came an unlock for the insiders, and then they wanted to pump up the price. Thus there was an announcement of the dinner. After that announcement, right after we saw the massive rally in the Trump token, people tend to sell. And so I announced my short position on the Trump token as well to the premium members. Everybody had the chance to just do the same thing and copy trade. And so if you want to skill up your game, you want to win in this player versus player game, if you don't just want to hope for your altcoin to pump, but you actually want to have a systematic approach to make money in this market, then feel free to check it out. It's down below. It's thebitcoinstrategy.com. It's not just a community. It's not just my trades. There's also more than 100 tutorial videos on trading as well, on portfolio management, on-chain analytics, of course, also on how to bet on falling prices without getting liquidated, right? Without having too much risk. It's currently $125 per month. You should also see a link around here. Just click on that and it will lead you directly to this page. So see you again on YouTube or see you in premium. Cheers.